How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Paycheck from 2003. This is directed by John Woo, who you guys may know for Mission Impossible 2 and the Nicolas Cage classic Face Off. This movie stars Ben Affleck and Aaron Eckhart, Batman and Two-Face, but from two different continuities, and also stars Kill Bill star Uma Thurman. Anyway, brief, non-spoilery plot. I'm going to cover setup, but no spoilers. You get Ben Affleck, who is a brilliant engineer, and they've been hiring him to reverse engineer stuff, so basically steal technology from other companies, but after he does a job, they wipe his memory, so he'll never be able to point the finger back at the company if they ever get called out for their shady business. However, he gets an offer for a new job. Most of his jobs have been just a couple months off his life, no more than 8 weeks, and this new job is going to take 2 to 3 years off of his life. But it's also going to pay him $90 million. So he trades a large chunk of his life, but in order to have the rest of his life free to do whatever he wants. Get out, make it big, one last job. However, after the time skip, after he wakes up, he finds out that the hem that got erased, the hem from those 2 to 3 years, decided to forfeit all the money for some reason, which is going to get Ben Affleck very angry, but also the other hem traded out his personal effects for a bunch of random garbage. And he's like, what was I thinking when I was under? Why would I not take the money? And why did I want all this random junk? Well, shortly after he gets out, he's chased by two group of people. The FBI, which Dexter from the TV show, the actor is actually in the FBI, so it's kind of cool to see him pop up. The FBI and his former company start to try to hunt him down. He's in serious danger and he doesn't really know why, but that envelope full of random junk that he didn't really want, turns out it's going to be things that happen to be super useful to him. He'll be in a chase and the only way out is the bus, and he just so happens to have a bus pass on him. It'll be things like that. Little objects that seem innocuous, but will change his fate. And he begins to realize that the other hem, the one that got erased, somehow was able to see into the future, and everything here, even though they look like junk, is going to be vital for his upcoming mission. The chance to save himself, the chance to make it out of this scrape alive, but he doesn't know how. Obviously, it had to be stuff that he could get past the company's security, so he couldn't just write himself a note or anything, but he's looking at things like a lens or a paper clip and a random coin, and he has to go, how the heck could I possibly use this? And that is a really fun concept, a really fun mystery, and leads to a bunch of really fun action sequences. He, of course, when he was under, the other hem fell in love with Uma Thurman's character, who's a scientist at the same company, and he's going to, in addition to having to piece together the mystery, piece together their relationship, and overall, a really, really fun movie. Why the concept works so well, though, is this movie is based on a short story by Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick, you guys probably know for being the writer behind Blade Runner. He wrote Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which became Blade Runner. He also wrote what would become Total Recall and Minority Report. And yeah, a really great sci-fi writer, and a lot of his works have been turned into classic sci-fi movies, and knowing that, you can definitely see a few common themes and a few references in this and his other work, and I think they even put in a few Easter eggs. I mean, there's a scene with this bird that's in slow motion, and I'm like, is that a reference to the end of Blade Runner? That's gotta be a reference, you know, and even the memory wiping machine looks a little bit like the machine at Recall. Maybe it's just me. But anyway, as far as adaptations go, this is relatively faithful, you know, bearing in mind that a lot of Hollywood adaptations just wreck the source material. They keep the central concept here, and it really is a fun central concept. Obviously, the story's retooled to be much more of an action movie, and also, like, the items in his bag are pretty much different. There's more of them, and the ending, I won't spoil the ending. The ending is very different than the original book, and I definitely recommend, like I said, it's a short story. Go check out Philip K. Dick's Paycheck if you like this movie. It is worth reading, especially to see the different ending. But the biggest difference between John Woo's Paycheck and Philip K. Dick's Paycheck is that Philip K. Dick actually set his story in the future. You know, I'm talking rockets and robots style future, and it is kind of funny, and I do wonder what it says about our society that in the 60s, Philip K. Dick said, I want to do a story about memory wiping and set it way off into the future, but then in the 2000s, you want to do a story about memory wiping? Set that in the present. What does that say about our attitudes towards plausible technology? I just think that's kind of funny. But anyway, like I said, keeping Dick's core concept is the strongest part, and it really is something that pulls you in. And even though there are 20 items, you know, they use up a few of them really quick, and they do get several shots of Ben Affleck, and then of course the audience, looking at this item and going, why the heck would I need this? And it is the funnest part of the movie, and some people have said it feels a little contrived, you know, it feels really convenient when he's in a dangerous situation and just happens to have what he needs. But that's literally the whole pitch of the movie, you know? That's the idea, is that his other self somehow knew he would need these. And I kind of imagine, although narratively there's no place to put it, I would imagine that there was some sort of Groundhog Day style testing where the other him that gets erased has to try a bunch of different combinations of items just to see if that's the one that would let him through and save the day. So yeah, it does feel convenient, but that's the point. And definitely when you look at this concept and say, well, this is the future that he engineered, this is the future that he wrote, if you think too much about it, it does take away some of the dramatic tension, knowing that, yeah, this is all planned out, right? But I feel that it's not so much about the dramatic tension as it is about the mystery, wondering why and how something's going to happen, and just unfolding what the other Hem, who got erased, wrote for the new Hem that doesn't remember any of it. It is a really good concept, and yeah, it does feel engineered, but that's because that's the point. But yeah, I really did, you know, like seeing this. It's an action movie with some sci-fi, but like I said, they didn't go the rockets and robots route, so it's not super heavy sci-fi, but there's enough in here that me, who's a bit of a sci-fi geek, will really like when they like go to the lab. Like Uma Thurman's a scientist and she's got all these plants and these fun robot arms will move stuff around, and then when you finally get a peek behind the curtain and see what he was working on, yeah, cool machinery there, and I really did like that. But yeah, this is primarily an action movie, and all the action is fun and stylized, and it really does feel upbeat, you know, and yeah, it does feel kind of cheesy by today's standards, But I really do like that. There are several fun cuts and fun shots, and it does keep it moving really fast with some good music behind it. Like, I won't spoil it, but when you find out why one of his items is a bullet, when you find out why he needs the bullet, it keeps cutting back to that, you know, kind of doing this whole sense of, you know, of like it narrowing down to the moment when he's gonna need it. And it's really cool. Now, it is kind of choppy, and some people don't like that. There's this whole big movement on the internet where action people are like, it must be long shots now, forget all the quick shots. But it's not so much one shot or the other. Long shots are good and have their purpose, but so do quick shots. And I feel like people tend to be on one side or the other when really it's about rhythm, you know, cutting from longer shots to shorter shots and, you know, not stagnating, having a rhythm. And I feel like I don't like how the internet has to be one side or the other. I mean, obviously we can go too far into quick shots and everybody cites the Liam Neeson jumping over a fence from Taken, but I do at the same time like how this kind of feels like a rock and roll rhythm going boom, 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 and it's not too choppy for me, but I get how people might get annoyed by it. Personally, the shots are all chosen for a purpose, and I do like how creative they can be, and it really does lend energy behind it, which I really do like, you know? And yeah, it's cheesy, and there's some moments where it definitely is going, ah, look how cool this is. But again, I do like that old school, optimistic, cheesy, fun action movie that this does definitely lean into. And yeah, it is worth mentioning the critics didn't really like this movie, and it was initially panned, but I did look up to see what people were saying about it nowadays, and I am glad to see that a lot of people are reevaluating this movie, and a lot of the modern audience that remembers it likes it. But sadly, yeah, this has been relatively overlooked, and I was glad to find it, because, you know, it is one that, you know, not too many people talk about, but it is a fun, pleasant surprise. It held my interest, and at the end of the day, I was really glad I watched it. I kind of consider this an IMBD find. For those of you guys who don't, I would really encourage you to look up more stuff about the people you like in movies. Do you like a director? Do you like a star? Do you like a writer? Find out who made the movies you like. Go to IMBD and see what else they made. And odds are you can uncover quite a few really good movies you never heard about just through this method. I obviously really liked Blade Runner, Total Recall. I went and I read a bunch of Philip K. Dick's stories. I specifically went and I read all the ones that got turned into big movies, and now I'm going through and I'm watching all the Philip K. Dick B-sides that don't get talked about as much. And yeah, this one was a really good find, and I definitely would recommend it, and it is pretty fun. And I guess I should talk about probably why the critics didn't like this, is it was kind of a cheesier movie, and I feel that this movie, if it had gotten released earlier, would have been like talked about a whole lot more. If this movie came out in the 90s, everyone would have loved it. The 90s were about being 90s cool, and this movie has that kind of cool factor behind it. But in the 2000s, people were grim and serious, and this really didn't fit into the grim and serious mold. It wasn't what people wanted at the time, and in turn, now it's kind of forgotten about, which is kind of sad. And this really is, when you talk about this turning point in film, probably 9/11. 9/11, obviously a really sad tragedy, but it is interesting to look at how it changed pop culture, you know? James Bond before 9/11 was Pierce Brosnan. After 9/11, the much more serious Daniel Craig era. Batman before 9/11, we had the Tim Burton stuff. After 9/11, we had the Christopher Nolan stuff. entertainment changed, entertainment got darker and more serious during this time, and if this movie had just came out a few years earlier, it would have been much more well received. So yeah, another case of a movie that came out a little bit at the wrong time, and I do wish more people would know about this. So if you want a fun, kinda cheesy action sci-fi movie with a really strong concept behind it and a really interesting and different sense of a mystery, I definitely would recommend this one. I feel it gets a little too overlooked, and it still is really fun, you know? So definitely would recommend checking it out. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. If you want to see me talk about more movies that are in some way similar to this, you can click right there and see more. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.